Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, another day, another dollar, as they say, or as the economy's going, another day, another $50. I'm Greg Anthony. You're here on the Investigative Journal, and maybe it's just another day closer to what we call the Vatican-led New World Order's quest for a one-world government, a one-world religion, and that's what we cover here on the Investigative Journal. So strap it in and listen up for the hour. You may just learn something. Now, today I want to talk about a number of things. First of all, we have to discuss spirit cooking, which I will get to, and Maria Abramovic, a Satanic artist that recently, in the last years, gave a performance with all these big Hollywood types at the Museum of Cultural Arts in Los Angeles, something you've got to listen to. Now, also we're going to talk about canon law and why the Vatican collects bones and relics. I've recently done a show on that, but I want to expand it a little bit. Also, some people say that 2017 is a year of drastic change. So I found, so much has happened in 2016. I found a short 10-minute clip that may just recap some of the things in case you already forgot, or in case you want to forget. I'm going to remind you. Okay, I'm going to start out with my Jesuit or Vatican quote of the day, which is really today a question. And the question is, why is the Vatican and Jesuits obsessed with bones and relics? Seems to me like it's some type of satanic ceremony. Now, recently I presented a show regarding the Capuchin monks and went down to Sicily years ago and went into their monastery, which is covered in bones and skulls and everything, and we went through all that. And I met this old Capuchin monk, and I asked him, I said, why do you guys do this? And he said, we honor the dead. Okay, so I recently did a show on that, and I want to come back and ask this question. Why do they do this? Why does the Vatican do this? Now, years ago, I also posed this question. I think it was way back in 2007. And I asked one of my guests, and I'm just off the top of my head right now, asked him, I remember this, and he said, quote, let me try, I'm going to have to paraphrase. He said, the answer is why are they obsessed with bones and relics is simple, and I think he said something like, very supremely evil. And he said the Vatican has this sick idea of collecting souls, and they've been doing it for over 14 centuries, damning these souls to an existence of torment and obedience to demons. This is their idea. They believe they can conjure up demons, he said, controlled by the Vatican, in turn giving them this, what they think, unprecedented and real evil satanic power. Wow, that was the religion I grew up in. If I would have known that, I would have ran for the hills the first time I ever went to a Catholic Mass. But then again, someone commented, and I picked this up and I pulled it out again. I remember I had a reader and a listener email me, and his name, I've pulled it out, and here it is. This was way back. Almost, 8 years ago. 10 years ago, excuse me. And his name was Shalom Solomon, at least that's the name he gave me. And he said, quote, I will listen to your show and read your article, and here are the roots and foundations to the story that you posted and the show that I listened to. The Empire of Rome, the Vatican State, he said, has a constitution, and it's called the Code of Canon Law. This is their highest governing legal authority, the basis of the cult of the dead, he said, worshiping bones, hair, fingernails, etc., comes from their code of canon law. Now, if I asked 9 out of 10 people on the streets today, do you know what canon law is? They probably wouldn't know. Okay? And then I'd have to tell them that's what the Church of Rome, or the Satanic element, this is their law. And basically what happens is, since our leaders of our country bow down to the Pope, they also respect canon law more than they do our own U.S. Constitution. Now, isn't that interesting? Okay, so then Solomon here sent me some of the more pertinent canon laws that refer to the collecting of bones and all of the things we're talking about. So let's look at what they are. So he sent me these, and I have them in front of me now. So let's look at, there's about 5 or 6 of them that relate to this. He says, Canon 901, a priest is entitled to offer Mass for anyone, living or dead. Okay. Canon 1186, to foster the sanctification, or let's say superstitions, of the people of God, the Church commends to the special and filial veneration of Christ's faithful, the Blessed Mary, ever Virgin. Now she's a dead human woman, right? The Mother of God, whom Christ constituted the mother of all. Unbiblical, non-biblical. The Church also promotes the true and authentic cult of the other saints. Now these are other dead humans that they worship, by whose example the faithful are edified and by whose intercession they are supported. So that's all non-biblical, right? Now Canon 1188, the practice of exposing sacred images in churches for veneration, this is fostering a superstition, right, is to be retained. These images, all these things the visions. Canon 1199, an oath is the invocation of the divine name as a witness to the truth. Canon 1237.2, the ancient tradition of placing relics of the saints, items like dead human hair and bones, within a fixed altar is to be retained. Okay, so that's one of their laws. They're supposed to put these items on a fixed altar and worship them. Now, I remember he also, he said this. He said, consider the law about corpses and the worship of the dead humans. And Canon 1239 1-2 says this. An altar, whether fixed or movable, is to be reserved for divine worship alone, to the exclusion of any secular usage. No corpse is to be buried beneath an altar, otherwise it is not lawful to celebrate Mass at that altar. But Solomon noted this. Listen to this. As in Babylon, the tombs of most of ancient gods were buried in the temples. In the main temple under the altar is where all the popes are buried. There is one exception concerning a corpse under the altar in the Roman Empire, Vatican State. The Pope celebrates his Mass above hundreds of corpses. The Roman religion has a fetish with dead bodies. Canon 1242. Dead bodies are not to be buried in churches, unless it is a question of the Roman pontiff. But that doesn't wash. Now listen, I remember having a woman on my show. She was a Native American who was in one of those Jesuit mission schools, and as a young kid, she witnessed a priest bury a baby under the altar. That murder, which she supposed it was never, ever, even though they went to authorities a number of years later because they were frightened as children, nobody would ever investigate that crime. But listen what Solomon wrote me, and he wrote down this stuff. It's pretty interesting. He said, for the past 1700 years, most of the popes have been buried directly under the altar in St. Peter's throne room in the Vatican. Constantine chose a large graveyard to build the Christian church of St. Peter. It was built directly on it. The Basilica of St. Peter was built over a large necropolis. He began building without removing any of the tombs. Pope, it's on a satanic pagan ground. This is where the Vatican sits. Pope Constantine, continuing with the pagan tradition of burying dead kings in the pagan temples, the location of this modern tomb chamber is still there, is famous. Now the cardinals call this the vault, the city of the dead. Now I remember when I was in Rome, a couple bishops, high-level bishops that I was talking to referred to it that way as well, because they worship the dead. That is directly under the altar in St. Peter's Square. The church services are held directly over the corpses of the popes. The Romans followed exactly in the Egyptian footsteps as the pharaohs in Luxor, Egypt, who were idolized and mummified in the Valley of the Dead. So also are the pontiffs in the City of the Dead, under the altar in St. Peter's Square. Now, that's exactly what he said. Interesting, huh? So now we get a better basis, even by their laws, why they worship the dead. And basically, this is not a Christian. They should not be called Christians. I say it many times. Now, many of the millions who follow Catholicism have no idea who they're really praying to. And the question becomes, because a Catholic asked me this, who still is a Catholic, I don't believe I worship Satan. I believe I worship God. But I said this very simply. Please worship God, the real God. And I said this. I said, you have an obligation to know what the hierarchy of your religion is doing. And once you do that, you'll get out of her. You'll get out of this beast. And the person was puzzled, but took me up on it. And guess what? Years later, that same person contacted me and said I got out of the beast. So at least I can say that this show has helped one person. And I know there's many others too. So let's continue with it. I have just a couple more things on this. But I find it, it's great to answer this question, because once you start realizing what they do, many people should just run for the hills and never get close to one of their ceremonies. Okay, one more thing. So that answers really a question of, why do they worship? More than just saying they worship the dead, you got to understand where all these, when you go into the Capuchin monks in Sicily and then into the Vatican, there's these, they still lay out these dead bodies of the popes and all of this stuff. I mean, it's crazy. And that also answered my question of why, when I interviewed Nuri Rivera, the wife of Alberto Rivera, the Jesuit priest who defected, and told the story of how he was a high-level Jesuit, and his job was to infiltrate Protestant churches, and he talked all about that, was killed by them. And then some of the Jesuits came to Nuri and said, would you please sign this document that he was insane and will give you millions of dollars? She refused. Then they asked her if she would tell them where he was buried, and she wouldn't, because she understood they were going to dig up his bones and take him back to the Vatican. So this will give me kind of answers a little bit of my question of why they do this. Okay, enough with the Vatican and Jesuit obsession with bones and relics. And I want to do this story on spirit cooking, Maria Abramovic, and this weird dinner at the Cultural Arts Center in Hollywood that occurred in the recent years in the next half hour. I only have about, 10 minutes here, and I won't be able to get it done. So you got to come back. No flipping, no going to YouTubes, or, if you're eating dinner, just put it on softly and you'll still may learn something here. This is interesting. And what I wanted to do in this last 10 minutes is, a lot happened in 2016, and lots going over in my mind right now. I paid close attention to most everything. The election, the President-elect Trump, Hillary Clinton, and everything else going on. Chaos in France and Germany over, immigration. We look closely at the Vatican and everything, and what was going on in Italy regarding illegal immigration, the huge story here in America. So there's so much. I could probably spend a day But what I did is I just picked out something real quick. I wanted to get somebody else's perspective. And this guy named Jason A. put together a video that's it's only 10 minutes or 11 minutes long, so I'll get most of it here. I want to just finish this half hour with this. Then we'll get to that spirit cooking satanic dinner. Wow. That blew my mind when I saw that, and I had to relay that to you, really what's going on in Hollywood. Hollyweird. Heard you see that guy? Yeah, he I think it was on New Year's Eve. He went up and put plastic bags. He didn't deface the Hollywood sign, but he made it. He made the two O's look like E's, and everybody woke up and it said Hollyweed. I guess that's because of the new marijuana law in California. But anyway, so let's. This year, everybody's telling me this is going to be a year of big change. Everything's going to happen. So let's see what Jason A. said about 2016 through some of the things he collected that are quite interesting. So let's do that right now. Here we go.
Department of Natural Resources is changing the way it's addressing climate change.
Department of Natural Resources quietly removing language from its website.
New write-up is titled The Great Lakes and a Changing World. Officials have removed wording that says humans and greenhouse gases are the main cause of climate change. The DNR now says the subject is a matter of scientific debate.
Now, in a break with history, the United States has allowed a controversial resolution to pass in the United Nations.
The frayed relationship between the Obama administration and one of the United States' closest allies, Israel.
The vote in the United Nations was about preserving the two-state solution.
Mr. Obama allowed the resolution to pass, an historic moment.
Israel's future is a Jewish and democratic state, living side by side in peace and security with its neighbors.
And for John Kerry to defend it, and for him not to try to stand against it and veto it, is a betrayal of our ally.
Virtually every country in the world other than Israel opposes settlements.
It's not often we see this much tension between the U.S. and Israel.
Religious leaders are responding with outrage as the world watches this unfold.
I don't think a lot of people fully understand the complexity of this. I'm going to just quickly show you this little map. All that green, those are Arab Muslim countries. You can't even see it, but there's a tiny little red dot right there. That's Israel.
Through the month of December, while Aleppo fell, while we watched Arab children being bombed to smithereens, they're sitting and helping to craft and push a resolution against the Jews. It rings of all the wrong messages of this blame for the Jewish entity.
But there is something new here. Common interests have created real possibilities for something different if Israel takes advantage of the opportunities for peace.
They brokered a deal with Iran. They praised for the death of Israel. There were ballistic missile tests earlier this year that carried the Hebrew message, Israel must be wiped out. And as a nation, we're sending $1.7 billion in pallets of cash to Iran as a ransom.
The idea that we are funding terrorism, the idea that that's the great diplomatic achievement of this administration. But now to end the administration with a diplomatic assault on Israel, when there hasn't been one United Nations Security Council resolution against Syria.
Now, 2016 could be a defining year for Iraq.
Taking on their greatest security challenge in recent years.
Well, the news of Syria's war continues to make headlines around the globe.
We have set for ourselves 17 ambitious goals. If we are to achieve them, this has to be an international movement, a coming together of people, a rallying around a common cause on a scale that we have never witnessed before in our history.
It is the only way to ensure Israel's future as a Jewish and democratic state, living in peace and security. Is ours the generation that gives up on the dream of a Jewish democratic state of Israel, living in peace and security?
For one reason or another, many people seem to think 2016 was an exceptionally bad year.
Yeah, it was terrible. personally and publicly.
Flooding is just something they have to deal with.
Does get worse. Does get worse every year.
Now, George Washington University is no longer requiring history majors to take U.S. history. The college following the lead of one-third of the country's top schools.
It's a new policy. The university says will help students keep pace with a, quote, globalizing world.
I wish I would say it's silliness or insanity, but it is now the standard.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what is being taught across not just elite universities, but universities everywhere. It's why we get Bernie Sanders on the Democrat side, because you have a bunch of kids thinking they're global citizens that don't understand their own country, they don't understand capitalism, they don't understand the Constitution, so they're seduced by these utopian ideas.
If you don't know it, you don't keep it. Yeah. That is exactly their goal. This is anti-American to take U.S. history out of history majors around the country, not just at George Washington University. I mean, we've seen around the country these campaigns to take down the American flag. We've seen these campaigns to take down the shield at Harvard because it represented slave owners who founded the school. I mean, they're erasing history because they don't want American history to thrive and to be part of our country. They're erasing it because it's anti-American.
It was truly disturbing to see a city so on the edge.
The shooter hopped out of the car and shot.
We were astonished by data we obtained from inside the police department. It revealed that as killings rose, police activity fell.
Former police superintendent Gary McCarthy tells 60 Minutes the problems can't be overstated.
We're reaching a state of lawlessness, right? That's what's happening. And crime skyrocketing, that's a huge problem.
Some people looking at the Chicago Police Department have said it's in crisis.
Crisis is a good.
It's a story people all over the country are talking about right now. After a night of countless fights inside shopping malls across the country,
I think everybody's emotions are really high right now. So I think it's just like I said, it's the time that we live in. And I think all us innocent bystanders, just our reactions is very quick. Everybody's assuming something could happen.
A New Year's Eve celebration turns deadly in Istanbul after a terror attack inside a crowded nightclub.
Turkey's biggest cities have been hit by several attacks over the last few months. Closed-circuit TV pictures show a gunman firing in the street outside the club.
Okay. We got about a minute left here, and I think you kind of get the point of what I was trying to show you. It was quite a year, wasn't it? And if you have any ideas of what to expect in 2017, why don't you email me at gregbeacon@gmail.com and give me your ideas, because I'll tell you what, I think we're in store for something very big next year, don't you? And that was just a spattering of things that occurred in 2016. And what I wanted to mention was that looking deeper behind the scenes, we have to ask the question, why did they select Donald Trump to be the next president? And when I say select, I mean that. I believe all these presidents have been selected. I can't tell you, going way back, but at least during my lifetime, we're moving towards something that is going to drastically change the lives of Americans in the years to come. I can't tell you how quickly that'll take place, but I'd like to get your thoughts about what you think we're in store for in 2017. And let me know, and I'll give you my email out again. It's gregbeacon@gmail.com. And look at what's going on in France. I never did get to the stories. I'm going to try to do that in the next week or so, of all these riots going on in France and Germany over the illegal immigration. And is that coming here? Well, we'll have to wait and see. I'm going to take a break. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal, and let's get right to it. So what is spirit cooking? And where did that term come from? Well, it recently came during the emails that WikiLeaks brought forth. And let me just say something here about that. I think Julian Assange is a CIA asset. And otherwise, this stuff would never get out. So the question is, why do they want all this stuff out? You know, this was all about John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, and all of this corruption going on in the Democratic National Party. Interesting. And I always felt when Pizzagate hit, and that was regarding this little pizzeria, this Comet Ping Pong in Washington, D.C., where all of the, it's a big splash that the pedophile ring, all these big Hollywood types, and all of the Washington types are involved in this pedophile ring. I believe it was kind of a smokescreen, but they wanted it out. And they want to, I believe, just shove it in your face of what it's all about. And then they also used it to then declare that anybody who's covering this story, it's all fake news. That, well, these emails weren't fake. Spirit cooking is not fake. And I just wonder if you ever thought about why they allowed it to just come out, because I believe that's real. Nothing comes into, trending on Twitter or anything unless they want it out there when it comes to this kind of stuff. But the real story here, to me, was this dinner at the Museum of Cultural Arts in recent years in Hollywood. And what went on at this dinner, it's incredible. But let me just give you a background on spirit cooking. It, just when you thought nothing could get stranger in 2016, spirit cooking started trending on Twitter. And the question is, what's the term? Why is it trending? And what does it have to do with the election? Okay. First, the term spirit cooking surfaced on WikiLeaks, like I said, an email dump, which included the emails of Tony Podesta to his brother John Podesta. This was kind of an offshoot of that Pizzagate thing, Hillary Clinton's campaign chair. The email was a forward from Marina Abramovic, a so-called performance artist who performed some really bizarre things. Now, there was an email sent from Tony to John Podesta saying, "Are you going to be at this dinner July 9th at Marina's house, the spirit cooking dinner?" And then Marina sent an email to Tony saying this, "I'm so looking forward to the spirit cooking dinner at my place. Do you think you will be able to let me know if your brother is joining? All my love, Marina." So what the heck is spirit cooking? And just to give you a little bit of a background, first up, spirit cooking seems to be a piece, they say, of performance art, using what appears to be animal blood to write out how to connect with spirits. It also includes spreading the blood around a room and on top of some sort of statue. Is it satanic, as some have said? Well, you know something, that's, I think, it is. But it is definitely weird as well. And Marina Abramovic is, she's basically adapted her performance art, she says, into a cookbook. And you should believe some of the things that she cooks with. Breast milk, sperm, and blood, and a number of different things. And she has put this exhibition up at the Museum of Modern Art. Now, the Museum of Cultural Arts, where the dinner I'm going to talk about took place, is interesting to say the least. So, Abramovic is 70 years old. She's a Yugoslavian-born performance artist. She has collaborated with people such as Jay-Z and Lady Gaga. And reportedly, over 750,000 people lined up to stare at Abramovic's art, so to speak, and I put that in quotes, in 2010. Is an unusual story, to say the least. Okay, before I get to this dinner where all these Hollywood stars went, there was a big buzz on the internet about the spirit cooking, as you can imagine. And specifically, Podesta was invited to this dinner, like I said. And is Hillary involved? Well, regardless of not attending, Podesta did not attend, openly admits he has been a longtime friend of Marina, and so does Hillary. In fact, Hillary has even wrote an article in Vanity Fair advocating that Marina and the followers of this art that Marina created decades ago become international diplomats. To be clear, Marina started this form of art, which has resulted in many occult practitioners performing satanic rituals, which now consider postmodern art. By postmodern art is meant to mean post-apocalypse or post-antichrist, maybe. Too many Americans go beyond the definition of art, and it is outright satanic, I think. This is not art when you really look at this. And you can check it out if you haven't. So again, let me ask you what spirit cooking is. Could it be, in a nutshell, it's an occult sexual ritual that had some combination of Wicca, magic, voodoo combined with Satanism? Let me quote somebody who wrote an article on this, and he said this: so far, no one has been able to claim that the photos and pictures that this man presented on his website, AlexanderHiggins.com, and it's you can go there. It's you can find it. It's just as I pronounced it, Alexander Higgins. He says that the satanic rituals, as they contain, he's got all these pictures, and they contain rituals including animal blood, animal meat, upside-down pentagrams, depictions of humans and animal sacrifice, self-mutilation, sperm, breast milk, crystals, and other satanic symbols. He says the media tells us this is harmless art and a harmless spiritual ritual. But he disagrees. And while the media won't report it because of Hillary's direct connections to Marina, herself describes it as Wiccan ritual, be it white or black magic. Now, Hillary endorses it, wanted her to become a diplomat. Now, Alexander here says that this is the work of the devil, hence satanic. He says, I also, quote, find nothing harmless about elites. I find taking pleasure in the art of watching someone self-mutilate in ways that included, now they also do whipping themselves, carving satanic symbols on their bodies, or offering themselves up for a crowd of men to abuse and satisfy their own sexual fetishes. He finds that very disturbing. And when you look at some of these pictures, it's amazing. There's a pentagram made with blood over a woman's naked body right by her navel. There's pentagrams in fire that she's creating, blood in the middle. And those are just a couple. Now, he said this, while they didn't, John and Hillary did not attend that one dinner. They're friends of Marina, for whom Hillary wrote that article in Vanity Fair promoting her art as a tool for international diplomacy. Following this, many Hillary surrogates in the media came forward to defend Hillary's links to Marina, claiming her works are nothing but art. While elitists might think this art, the average American, now includes me as well, would highly be disturbed to this, and really it tells me who Hillary really is. And the question then has to become, you email me, gregbeacon@gmail.com. Why would they want you to know all this stuff? That's a real big question. Now, he gathers a collection of photos if you want to look at it on his website. So go there and you can check it out if you'd like and really understand that this proves things I've been saying, that these people are all worshiping Lucifer. They're Satanists at the highest levels of our government, posing as Christians. Now, Hillary, did I ever tell you she grew up in my neighborhood? Yeah, not far from where I lived. A place called Park Ridge, Illinois, right next to Chicago. And she grew up in a very conservative family. And in fact, when she started out, she was a Barry Goldwater Republican until she met Bill. And then you know the rest of the story. So listen, I got to get to this dinner at the Museum of Cultural Arts. And you'll find this to be very, very disturbing. Like I said, there was a dinner that was held at the Museum of Cultural Arts, and Maria Abramovic was the host of this dinner, and many, many big Hollywood stars attended. But let me read a couple comments about this dinner. Now, remember I mentioned they placed actors under the tables, and then the only thing sticking out was their heads, real live people. Their heads were looking at the people eating, and they were between the plates. That's weird. I mean, can you imagine going to dinner and having a head looking at you? Just the head. Now, one comment about this dinner, Jack sent this and said, "Ghosts, they have beheaded talking heads on tables. As they eat in front of it, they have also a red cake, and they stab the cake as if it's a heart. This is not the first time he says he's seen this. That's a symbolic image of cannibalism that goes back for generations, and Hollywood has been reenacting it for decades." Boy, this is crazy, he says. Another woman sent a comment and said, "Come out of her, my people. God will never have anything to do with the Hollywood beast." Okay, let me give you a closer look at the dark side of Hollywood. Here's what one of the attendees said.
I was very excited to be invited, and I've been here a few times, and it's always great. It's always interesting. It's going to be a really amazing installation tonight that I look forward to seeing.
Okay, that's one Hollywood actress that commented about going to this dinner. Let's look at it a little closer and see what we have. As I'm looking at this now, there's a bunch of these actors and actresses going in to the Museum of Contemporary Art, MOCA, in Los Angeles for this dinner put on by Maria Abramovic. Now, there's a number of articles written. There were pictures taken. But I'm looking right now, and you got to see this, looking right now at these heads that, they're real people, and the only thing sticking up on the table, they're under the table, are the heads. And it's a funny thing to see people get dolled up for a museum. So you got all these Hollywood actors and actresses dolled up for this, to go to this museum event. They got their furs, jewels, tuxedos, floor-length gowns. Only before they go into the dinner now, and Marina is going to host the dinner, they're asked to put on white lab coats. And then you see them. Yes, they're asked, instructed. They all are putting on their lab coats, and I'm talking about some of the top Hollywood stars. And they're asked to do this, and so here they are now, putting on their lab coats. But that's exactly what all of them did. 750 guests of this dinner of the Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles at this annual gala put on the lab coats and were prepared to sit down to dinner. But the weirdness didn't stop there. Watch this. It's incredible. Listen to this. So now I'm looking at all the photographers. You're looking at the gala event outside, and they haven't yet put on their coats, and they're all getting ready to go to this dinner. And you can go and find a couple videos on this, and you'll be really shocked as I was. And I'm looking at some of the stars, all smiling, happy, putting on their little glamour event. Some you'll recognize who they are. And now they're all dressed in their white lab coats. I'm looking at pictures of them now in the Contemporary Museum of Art exhibitions and collections. Are among the top reasons that Los Angeles is home to several generations, they say. This is what they're putting out, of important artists, including Marina Abramovic, the spirit cooking lady. So here they are. They're getting their white coats, and they're going down to sit down to dinner. And I see some very famous faces there. They say, the Times says, this museum is thriving and everybody attends. You're not somebody in Hollywood if you don't go to the Museum of Cultural Arts, and especially don't go to this dinner. So now, here they are assembling. You can see all the tables, and now I'm looking at the heads sticking out of the tables. And they all crowded. They were greeted by these unusual, they were called centerpieces at every table, live human heads. Performance artists sat beneath every table. The rotating heads, the heads were rotating, poking up between the plates. Lord, that's a weird thing, isn't it? This is art. Wow. And I'm looking at that. There was black heads, white heads, and all kinds of heads. Real people staring at you and rotating their heads as you eat dinner. Now, one woman, Carrie Cleland, an artist who co-runs the space at some project she does there, Carrie talks about, she performed as a turning head and found her presence made some guests visibly uncomfortable. And one woman, she says, I felt like she couldn't eat in front of me. I tell you, I couldn't. Looking at that. No, my thought is, did anybody give them something to eat? Can you imagine? Would you like a piece of my pie or maybe a sip of wine, Mr. Head? Now I've seen all the actors now. Listen to this. You're going to know a lot of these people. They're getting their lab coats on. And it says there's a sign there. An artist should avoid falling in love with another artist. Okay. So here we got some of the biggest stars in Hollywood now dressed in their lab coats. And just when we thought it couldn't get any weirder, it did. Two life-size nude statues then appeared of Debbie Harry and Marina Abramovic were then rolled on stage in front of these actors while they were eating. Harry was provided with a machete. I'm not making this stuff up, folks. This is what's going on there at this dinner. You didn't hear much about it, did you, in the mainstream or anywhere? I didn't hear anything. Nobody heard it. You know, you have to really look deep. So anyway, Harry's got the machete. Maria Abramovic's her statue. They are life-size looking statues. They're nude statues now. And boy, I'm looking at one of these heads just staring at somebody eating. So now these guys are bringing these guys with no shirts on are bringing these nude statues out in front of all the actors. Now they're placed in the actors are all surrounding. Now listen to this. Amidst raucous cheers, they're all cheering now. She dramatically raised the knife over her head and drove it. This is Marina. Into the heart of her nude likeness. So here she is. She's dressed in red with this white wig. She's got this knife, and she stabs it into her nude likeness. Then, recalling something out of The Last of the Mohicans, she removed the statue, beating heart, made of red velvet cake. Now, if this isn't a satanic event, I mean, now you see her standing there with the knife. She just stabbed it into her heart, the cake, and she's standing there with it. And now you can see the heads looking. And now it's so weird. All these actors are taking pictures, on their iPhones. Now I'm looking at another little skeleton that they're given. They're all looking at a skeleton now she's providing. This is her art. Now get this, how much you had to pay to go to this. Individual tickets to this year's MOCA Gala range from $2,500 to $10,000. Gala, if you want to sit at the Satanic table with your lab coat, Gala table prices range from $25,000 to $100,000. So you realize it had to be the money-making Hollywood stars that are going there. Now, to you, does this sound like art to you folks? And you know something? If somebody didn't, if somebody's listening to this, they would think that everything's being made up, that all this stuff is fake news. It doesn't go on. But I'm looking at, inside shots of this. It does go on. The question is, you never hear about it. So I'm telling you, these people, you take Pizzagate, you get the spirit cooking. Now you look at what the Hollywood stars are doing. It's going on in Washington. In the Vatican, we talked about relics and the worshiping of bones. And it's going on here in Hollywood. Incredible story, to say the least. And you have to wonder. Then recently... Oh, wait, now listen to this. This is an interesting point of this meal. Before the main course was served, Abramovic led a group of performers in a reading of her manifesto. And she said something like, "I like the idea of total transition," she explained. "You're not just here as a guest of another gala. You're an experimenter in a strange lab." Wow. So you paid to be What are they doing? It's incredible. And, you know, why does anybody go to these events? I really don't know. I mean, why does anybody go to these Hollywood? Now, to end the show, here's a little sound clip from that gala dinner.
An artist's relation to self-control.
The artist should not have self-control about his life. The artist should have total self-control about his work.
An artist's relation to solitude.
An artist should stay for long periods of time looking at fast-running rivers.
Incredible. What was that? An artist should spend a long time looking at fast-running rivers? Wow. So that's, you know, you have to ask yourself, why does anybody, I mean, you don't want to go to these Hollywood movies. Now, you know, we also had Meryl Streep use the Golden Globes the other night to denounce Donald Trump. And I'll get to that tomorrow because it's an interesting story. And I can't believe these people use that platform the way they do. And I think, you know, what she was doing, not so much, you know, the right of free speech, etc. There's places, I mean, you don't have to do, she could have taken out an ad in the New York Times. She could have done an op-ed story. She could have done many things, held a press conference somewhere else. But to use that, what she was really doing is she never thinks, she's got so much money she doesn't care. But maybe she's alienating half of America, you know, middle-class America, who doesn't feel the way she does. And she ought to look at it from a business point of view as well. So we can talk about that another time. But this Satanic Illuminati event in Hollywood, it was amazing. And just when you thought things were getting strange, something else happens. So let's keep an eye on that this year. And every year they do this, and Marina was the Marina Abramovic. Check her out. Yeah, Google her and see how weird what this is really all about. And I find it to be quite disturbing. But anyway, come back tomorrow on the Investigative Journal. Tomorrow I have on Bert Krantz of the Alamo Ministry, and we're going to get into, again, the subject of Christian persecution in America and around the world. Didn't have time to get into some of the things I wanted to regarding a massacre that occurred in Nigeria and other things. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.